On today's show, we'll talk about the Nashville Predators in overseas action, the drop in NHL postseason viewership, and we'll play a fun game of Friday Takes from a Hat.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everyone. You have made it through another week. Thanks for joining us here at Locked On Predators, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are, of course, your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off our Friday episode shouting out our Locked On Predators insiders and our everydayers who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer and co-host with Penalty Box Radio, and friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I am Emma Lingan, and I am the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
On yesterday's show, Emma and I talked about players we think could have bounce back seasons next year. One of the ways some of those Predators are getting their groove back is by playing in the IIHF Men's World Championships. Today, we're going to talk about how those Preds are doing and why this tournament may come at the perfect time for them. We are also going to talk about the information that came out yesterday. NHL viewership in the U.S. is down this postseason. We're going to share our thoughts on that. And then, friends, our insiders have jumped into the ring and provided us with some takes from a hat from this for this fun Friday. So we got a ton to get to today, Emma. News every which way you look, but wanted to start, and we've mentioned this a couple of times in different shows that we've done recently, but the IIHF Men's Worlds are taking place right now in Finland and Sweden. And several Nashville Predators are in on the action. Of course, for Team Canada, Ryan O'Reilly. Sweden, we've got Filip Forsberg, Michael McCarron, Brady Shea playing for the USA. And of course, Finland's goaltending duo. One, it's a duo we are very familiar with, Juuse Saros and Juuse Saros. And, Emma, we've touched on this. This is a really good off-season opportunity for these players who were selected to join, their country's teams. Some have had really great tournaments. Some have since yesterday been eliminated in dramatic fashion. I'm looking at you, Team Canada. But when you look at the opportunity that this tournament provides for those specific players, why is this so important that they participate?
Well, I think these guys, it's the same reason that the Four Nations was so successful. I think that guys like having the opportunity to play for their country. It's a time to play, and, guys play for different reasons. Like maybe they get to play a different role on a team, like a guy might be a fourth liner on his NHL team, but he might be a top line center on his country's team, and and vice versa too. There's different roles you get to experience. And I think for some guys, a la Nashville Predators, it is a chance to play meaningful hockey for the first time in quite a long time. So I think that's good. And, we talk about Andrew Brunette talked about a lot this year, like guys finding their joy in the game again. And I think sometimes that's just really hard to do when you're in the thick of it. So this is a good opportunity, I think, for those guys to do that.
Yeah. Elliot Friedman was on 1025 yesterday and was talking about Worlds and just how valuable this tournament could be. And I agree with so much of what he said. It is the perfect palate cleanse for these Nashville Predators players who had no postseason, and quite frankly, no postseason hope from midseason on. I mean, they were playing, but it was really like slogging through 82 games. There just wasn't the same kind of motivation. This is a breath of fresh air for these guys. I also think it matters that these are pretty high quality games because these countries are pooling together the best players from their home countries, from the NHL. And these are high quality games. You know, I mean, I'm not sure anybody had Denmark pegged for the upset over Canada yesterday, but even teams that aren't boasting a roster with really familiar NHL names on it, these are really competitive teams. And I think it's good for players, especially Nashville Predators players who had not even a whiff of the postseason to play.
Yes, and I will add on an unrelated note for team now. I mean, it's moot now because they got eliminated, but for one game, or was it 2 games or 1 game? We got to see, for those of us who cover teams who are going to be picking in the top 5 of the draft.
Come on.
Porter Martone was added
Yes.
to Team Canada. Bo Horvat was ruled out, so Martone was added, and so it's kind of like one of those events, somewhat like World Juniors, except it's not juniors; it's just the Worlds, and so it's cool to get an opportunity like that to see a high draft pick, a future high draft pick play with other NHL players and just see how he fits.
Yes, I thought that was so fascinating. I'm like, Barry Trotz is like speed dialing Ryan O'Reilly and be like, tell me everything. What did you think? What's he like in the locker room? What'd you think of his game? What's he doing warm-ups? Like, Barry Trotz is trying to get the lowdown. Now, I don't know that Porter Martone is going to be available at 5, but he is somebody worth discussing. And of course, we've got tons of draft coverage coming up for that. But yeah, I have really enjoyed seeing Worlds. Here is something that I think is so interesting. You talked about a guy who may be a fourth line player on his team in the NHL getting an elevated role. And I think of a player like, and I almost hate to say the name out loud because I know what this does to people in the Nashville Predators fandom, but I think of a player like Ellie Tolvanen, who is
I knew you were going there.
Sorry, but it's so true. Ellie Tolvanen is having himself a time. He is having himself a time, and you got to love to see it. Here is another player. Let's just turn that page. I just turned that page. But another player for Finland, Juuse Saros, has been, maybe up until yesterday, one of the best goaltenders in this entire tournament. Now, yesterday, he did give up 5 goals to USA. Fortunately, for the tension in the locker room, McCarron and Shea weren't responsible for any of that riffraff. Because we don't need more drama in the locker room, friends. We want less.
No.
But Juuse Saros has been phenomenal, except for that one game. I mean, phenomenal. And that is the kind of thing you need to see for a player like Juuse Saros. You know what? Stella maybe didn't have his groove in the regular season, but he is over there getting his groove. And I think it changes the way you come into training camp. And let me tell you something, friends. Training camp needs to be very different than what things were in the end, mid-April when these 82 games wrapped up. Like, things need to be different. So I think this is just a great opportunity. It's been great to see Saros playing really well. Ryan O'Reilly playing some top minutes, even though he did go to the timeout booth at one point. They didn't score on that, but I was like, buddy, even internationally, no snacks there.
He probably, whatever whatever punishment you would have for him is nothing compared to, he probably went out back and set himself on fire after that. So for his country, come on.
Oh, yeah. Poor Porter Martone is probably like, I don't want to get picked by the Predators because that dude is nuts. Like, so little grace for himself. I bet he's horrible in the locker room. Bless. Again, we're going to kick off a Venmo for a special sports psychologist for Ryan O'Reilly. Coming up, interesting article came out yesterday that viewership for the NHL postseason way down in the US. We're going to talk about why we think that is, and we're going to kick off a very fun game of Takes from a Hat. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and had this moment wondering, where did all my money go? Whether it's dining out or online shopping or the cost of entertainment these days, it's so easy to lose track. That is where Monarch Money comes in. It is your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app, it is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, your investments, and your spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you can start building wealth. Monarch Money makes for easy financial collaboration as well. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts. You can set goals together and stay on the same page without any extra stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All right, Emma, interesting little tidbit dropped yesterday, and just I thought this was interesting. NHL viewership in the postseason in the United States is down. The first two rounds on ESPN's coverage down 28%, TNT's down 19% year over year. And it made me go, huh, what's that all about, do you think? Now, ESPN and TNT, they broadcast only in the United States. Of course, the NHL and Canada have their own thing going on. But I thought it was really interesting that in the US, viewership is down. And I was kind of trying to figure out, why is that? Here's what I think, and then you can tell me what you think. I think this off season, you don't have some like marquee franchises in there. Like, there was no Boston, there was no Pittsburgh, Sidney Crosby, no Detroit, no Chicago, which shouldn't be a big surprise, but that's a big fan base. The Rangers, and then you had some pretty quick exits for teams like Colorado, who have a huge fan base. The LA Kings, even Washington, they made it to the second round, but it just wasn't super exciting there. So I wonder if that has something to do with it, or is it about something else, do you think, Emma?
I think it's the media markets who are not in the playoffs this year. That's a big one. I mean, specifically Boston and New York.
Yes.
I think Boston as well is very hung up on the NBA playoffs at the moment. And as is New York. But either way, I think that, like you said, those marquee franchises are not in it. Or not even franchises, but like marquee markets, I guess.
Yeah.
I think that that's huge. And I've been saying this, like, as much as I personally would love Dallas to make it to the Stanley Cup final, I don't like that. Would be the NHL's nightmare, because it would be Dallas versus either Florida or Carolina. Either way, like, small markets media wise. And
Yeah.
I don't care that the Florida Panthers are the defending champions. That does not change the size of their media market. It's small.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I don't mean that as a criticism. It's just what's real. So
Right.
that's what I was saying. I was like, oh, the NHL is really going to hate this final matchup. It's like whatever year that, what was it, 2019 or 2020, whenever the final was Dallas and Tampa.
Oh, yeah.
And like it was a great matchup, but I was like, the NHL is going to hate this because it's two like markets no one cares about.
Yeah. Last year, I thought it was so interesting that Edmonton, Florida's Game 7 was the most watched game on any network in the last 5 years. But I think it's because it was Edmonton and Connor McDavid and a Game 7. And I think, and that, I mean, zero disrespect to Florida, for saying that, no disrespect to them at all. But I think non-invested hockey peripheral fans tune in
Yeah.
to see Connor McDavid win the Stanley Cup. I don't think non-invested peripheral fans tune in to see Matthew Tkachuk win the Stanley Cup. And again, I mean, no disrespect. That's not a statement on talent or team. I just think you don't draw.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, casual fans are not going to tune in to see Tyler Seguin win the Stanley Cup. Like,
Right.
it's just, or Matthew Tkachuk or Sam Bennett or,
Right.
whatever. I just think that I never want to say like real hockey fans, because that sounds like I'm gatekeeping, and I never want to do that. I would love everyone, hockey needs more fans, but I think that the non-casual fans would
Mhm.
love a Dallas, Florida Stanley Cup final.
Yes.
I know I would, but I would also love Dallas, Carolina, but I don't think that I don't think Carolina is getting past Dallas. But either way, I think that it is just kind of if you look at, even the NHL is talking about expansion. They've been talking about it for a while. And the reason that they're looking at, people are like, why are they going back to Atlanta? They've already failed twice in Atlanta, because Atlanta is one of the largest media markets in the country. It would be irresponsible not to try again. And it failed because of ownership before, not because there were no fans.
Yes.
And same thing with Arizona. Like, it's the same exact thing. Arizona, Phoenix, huge, huge media market there.
Mhm.
So it's like, again, it's a business at the end of the day. So, I mean,
Yep.
it is unfortunate, but money does talk.
It does. And you know what, Emma? You are a genius, because without knowing it, you have addressed one of our insiders' takes from a hat. Genius. So this week on Fun Friday, we're playing Takes from a Hat, but we went to our insiders and said, give us a take, give us a question. We're going to throw it in a hat. Since I printed them out, Emma hasn't seen them yet, but one of them was about going back to Atlanta. And here's what I will say: Atlanta is a great sports town. So I'm here for that one. All right, here we go. Our first insider's takes from a hat. The Preds don't need a teardown and are not a bad team. Agree or disagree?
I think those are two separate thoughts. And I think
Okay.
that, so I don't know, because I think that I go back to the idea that there is not one way to be successful, and to become competitive. I mean, again, look at Dallas, look at Washington until this last round. But like, they both did, well, not so much Dallas, but Washington in particular did the rebuild on the fly thing, and it
Mhm.
worked. Like, it worked for them, because they have Ovechkin, and you can't do a teardown as long as you have Ovechkin. So I think for Nashville, it is possible. Like, if you look at what Washington did, but you just got to do it right. And I think if they're not going to do it right, then yeah, you got to tear it down. But as far as, are they a bad team? I mean, they played some bad hockey this year. No
Well, we
one
saw the
is.
whole thing. We saw
We
the whole
saw
thing.
we saw all 84 years of it. It has aged us. Ugh.
Yes.
Yes, I was 10 years younger at the start of this season, and now I'm just old and decrepit because it was rough.
Ooh,
Um they played some very bad hockey. They are not very bad hockey players. I think that there's a
I think
distinction.
that's a yeah.
Um and so, again, I don't, because before, the issue with the Predators, right, was that the fact that they had like a whole team of like bottom six players. And
Mhm.
it was like, okay, like, you need those bottom six guys, but you only need six of them. You don't need all of
That's
them.
why
You
they're
don't
not
need
called the
12 of them.
bottom 12.
Correct. So that was always kind of the issue before. And then it was like, oh, they full sent a little too hard. and then they went and got like the stars, and now that they have, it's about just fitting that talent, fitting those pieces into the right places to make them successful.
Yeah.
So
I agree with what you're saying. I don't think they need a full teardown yet. And I'm not sure they do. I don't know that Barry Trotz, like the needle he's trying to thread is so thin and very tricky. And I think it involves so many things going right, but I don't think it is time yet for a whole teardown. And here's the other thing. There is too much talent in the Predators pipeline to do a complete teardown on the cusp of being NHL players, to do this huge teardown and start all over again. I think we will find out next season if this is a good hockey team. On paper, this is a good hockey team. These are good hockey players, but man, was it a bad season. And I think if a couple of things on the ice and existentially can correct, they could be a good hockey team on the ice. I come back to the Central Division is a bugaboo. So I'm not here to say they are going to be like a high-ranked team going into the postseason, because I think there's a lot of outside forces. But I would agree. I don't think this is a bad team. I think this is a team with talent that needs to get it together. Coming up, we have some more takes from a hat, including a question for Emma and I, a personal question of a personal nature. We'll answer it in a minute. All right, we are back with a fun insiders provided takes from a hat game here, Emma. Okay, here's a question. Segues right from what we were talking about. What is a reasonable set of expectations for the 25-26 Nashville Predators? Now, that will be multiple podcasts closer to the regular season, but just off the cuff, Emma, ballpark for me, just realistic expectations for this team. This may be the hardest question we pull from a hat ever.
remember on July 2nd when we were talking about realistic expectations being a Western Conference final?
That felt so good.
Yeah, that was when I was 10 years younger. And it
Yes.
was simultaneously 84 years ago.
Uh-huh.
So the good thing here is that there's nowhere to go but up, in theory. Like,
There's so little space to go down, y'all.
so little. So I think the expectation should be better than 30th in the whole freaking league. When talking about expectations, I don't even want to bring playoffs into it. And that's not because of Nashville as much as it is about the rest of the Central Division.
Yes.
It is a freaking gauntlet. And I know we say that every year, but it is true because you've got obviously there you got Dallas and Colorado. Remember we thought it was going to be Dallas, Colorado, Nashville, and then everyone else. That was cute.
Yeah, it didn't work out like that. Spoiler
we were
alert.
young. We were young and hopeful. But I think that, you've got obviously Dallas and Colorado still.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Winnipeg.
Yep.
You've got, because again, I'm not talking about playoffs here. I'm just talking about regular season. You got Winnipeg. You've got teams that I think people were sleeping on, including us, like Minnesota and St. Louis,
Yes.
because again, looking at those teams, like, well, it's the Central, so they're probably not gonna, make any noise. But they did. They made the playoffs, and then even without, like for Minnesota, they made the playoffs without Kirill Kaprizov for half the year. So
Be afraid.
You've also got Utah, who I think is they're gearing up to make some noise. I think that they're going to be a sneaky good team next year too. And then there's Chicago, who I'm not really worried about, but it doesn't matter. You don't need to be worried about Chicago. because you've got 5 other teams to worry about. So I just think that reasonable expectation, you finish with above a 500 record. If that means playoffs, great. If not, welcome to the Central Division.
Yeah. I agree with everything you say. I think it's so hard to put expectations on this team in a vacuum when you are a part of the Central Division. For me, I would love to see this team, and I think it's realistic to be bouncing in and out of that second wild card spot late in the season. I think that's realistic. Remember on July 2nd when we thought we had realistic? Bless you all. We tried so hard. We are educated. We follow this team religiously. We are at practices. I am telling you, we do our work. We didn't lie to you. We just, I don't know what happened there. Like, we don't know. We're just
fever
dream.
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 Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Here is a question for you and I. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I print these out because I had time to think about it. Good luck with this one, Emma.
Oh.
What do you enjoy most about working in sports?
Ooh. I think I like that. So I'm the kind of person who I don't like I hate getting bored. I never want to be bored. I always want to have something to do. Working in sports, no 2 days are the same. I hate the question, what does a typical day look like for you? I just respond with, what's that? Like, I like that. Like, I like that it keeps you on your toes. Even in the off season, like, yes, there's not as much, daily, newsworthy content that's necessarily happening. But just the fact that every day looks a little bit different, you never get bored. And that's what I like about it.
Yeah, that's a great answer. It really, no 2 days are the same. No 2 media scrums are the same. Yeah, it's so true. There's 2 things for me. One, I love to learn. And I think you learn best in conversations with people who are at the top of whatever their field of expertise is. And I've always loved sports. I mean, I loved sports when I was little. I have always been sports obsessed. But I love learning from people who are at the top of their game and also people who are not like me. You said on yesterday's show, Juuse Saros is just ridiculously competitive. I am the least competitive person I know until I'm not, and then I'm feral. But for the most part, I am just
confirm. Can confirm.
Emma has seen some things. But I'm not a competitive person, and I am fascinated to learn about people who exist in that plane and hit excellence. That's one of the reasons, you and I joke about Kevin Lankinen. One of the reasons I love talking to Kevin Lankinen is there was always insight into how he did what he did at a high level. And I am fascinated about learning about that. And I am fascinated about that in other facets, not just sports. But that is selfishly probably what I love most, is that you get to ask and learn from people who are exceptional at something. And I think everybody is exceptional at something. But theirs is just at such a high level, and it is a fascinating study to me about what does it take. And for me personally, I'm more curious about the mental side of it. What does it take? The other thing is I'm nosy AF. That's just what's real. I am just a naturally curious person. And so I love that in sports, there is always so much to dive into. Whether it is like analyzing play, or whether it is imagining rosters, or whether it is measuring expectations versus reality, whether it is, do you wear your Stanley Cup rings and why the hell not? Like, I'm just a naturally curious person about all of that. And so just, again, selfishly, it's just such a great learning experience to be able to work in sports. And it is not boring. I will tell you this though, it is exhausting. It is exhausting. Which a lot of jobs are. Okay, here is another. Oh, there's a good one. This insider's take. I think the Matt Duchene buyout has been Barry Trotz's biggest mistake of his time as general manager. Thoughts?
I've been saying that since he did it. Like that. I mean, yeah, it's a hot take, I guess, but I've been saying that. A lot of people are like started saying it, and I'm not suggesting this insider is saying that, but like
Mhm.
there are a lot of people who decided after Matt Duchene went to Dallas and started popping off like, oh, Barry Trotz made a mistake. And it's like, okay, but did you really think that when it happened? I thought
Mhm.
it when it happened. I'm like, this is not a good idea. This is not a good idea. I don't like it. It's not like he was like, again, it's not like he was making like $12 million a year. Like it's not like that contract was going to be a massive dead weight on you. And by
Mhm.
the way, now it is because you're still paying it. You're
Six
paying
and a
him.
half million dollars later, and he ain't scoring goals for you.
He's scoring them for Dallas though in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yes. No. I have been on this side of this take for like since the day that it happened. I have not liked it. I didn't think it was a good idea then. I don't think it's a good idea now.
Yeah. When Matt Duchene was on the team years and eons ago, I used to joke that most marriages you fight about two things: sex and money. My husband and I never fought about that, but we always fought about Matt Duchene. That was what we fought about in our marriage. We fought about Matt Duchene more than anything else. We fought about Matt Duchene because I have been a Matt Duchene apologist, and my husband was like, "Nah, nah, nah." The "I told you so" feels great. The 6.5 million, probably not so much, but I will say this, I would love to know someday the other side of that coin. The Barry Trotz, for as transparent as he is, and I appreciate that about him, I think it was wise and respectful that he didn't dig in and air any, weird, super weirdness. And I do think you had said this earlier this week that he was kind of lumped in with Ryan Johansson as sort of a narrative there. I'd be really curious what it was. And I have my own thoughts on what I think that might have been, but it's purely speculation on my part. So I think there's an interesting narrative there. But yeah, I mean, sitting back watching him score them goals. So
I like out of respect for him, for the situation, like all of it. I do have some insight into it that I'm not going to share here, but
Mhm.
I just think that from what I can say about it, it's just like it seemed like a very aggressive move on Barry Trotz's part for
Mhm.
like it was just like I don't even know what to compare it to, but it just seemed a little bit like, all right, new sheriff in town, time to, like, and
It's
it's like,
my team now.
yeah, and it's like, okay. I mean, did you need Matt Duchene to like sign for I don't even remember when his contract was supposed to end.
I don't
But
either.
it's like, did you need to have him signed like to an extension until the end of time and build a statue of him next to Pekka? No. But like he was still contributing to your team. That's what bothered me about it. It's like I understand there's culture and culture's important. And I, again, not saying that Dusty was a locker room cancer in any
Right.
way. Like, I feel like
Right.
people hear culture and they're like, oh, who was he mean to? Who was he
Right.
beefing with? It
Right.
literally, like, this is when I was with the team all day, every day. He was not beefing with anyone in the locker room. It was truly just like, I do understand how guys like Matt Duchene can potentially, maybe rub people the wrong way just because of the way that they talk or the way they express themselves. And that's fine. He doesn't have
Mhm.
to be for everyone. Like, you don't have to like him as a
He's
person.
not a
But
taco. He don't have to be
no,
for everybody.
I just think that you just have to look at what's real and like, hey, he's not a complete jerk and he's not like dividing the team or making this team culture worse. So why that, like, it just seemed like a very aggressive move for Barry Trotz to just be like, no, he's not who I would have picked. So bye-bye.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and pure speculation on my part, but kind of what you're talking about, because he was so much Poile's guy. I mean, David Poile has been in love with Matt Duchene for forever. I mean, he wanted Matt Duchene for forever. And you wonder if it is that, hey, I gotta make sure everybody knows this is my team kind of thing. I don't know. Someday when Barry Trotz writes a book, we all gonna just skip all that other stuff and we're gonna go right to the Matt Duchene chapter, aren't we? Because I think time is not going to probably change that move. If there are some people who it does, and Matt Duchene could poop a golden puck in game 7 in net to win the game in double overtime, and people would still be like, "No, I wouldn't take him. I wouldn't take him back." I just think he's one of those players. Either people were in on him or they were out on him. We haven't fought so much in my house since he moved, but doesn't mean I don't say things under my breath when Dallas plays. So there's that. Maybe a little too much information when we talk about personal questions. We have some more takes from a hat from our insiders. We are going to save them for another Friday because we are running out of time here today. Thank you so much for tuning in to this Friday episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. And again, thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are going to be back next week. We are kicking off some player reviews and we are looking ahead. What do we need to see from each of these individual players next season to make a difference for this team? Before we log off, though, for this week, Emma, let everyone know where they can find you and your work.
You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingan, and you can find my work at the Hockey News.
You can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can find my work with Penalty Box Radio as well. Friends, that's going to do it for this episode and this week with Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We will not have an episode on Monday. We want to wish everybody a happy Memorial Day, but we will be back Tuesday with that all new episode. We'll see you then.